Hello students and welcome to Yupp Master. We have started with the topic of earthworm, and you all know how important earthworm is for your NEET exams, right? A question does come from earthworm and also from frog. So remember, along with cockroach, we have to be knowing about the earthworm and about the frog as well for our NEET exams. So in our last lecture, we went through the basic external features of the earthworm. If you remember, we also went through the anatomy of the earthworm, alright. If you have not seen that lecture, do go to our Yupp Master channel, the NEET channel, and over there in zoology, you'll find my lecture of the earthworm, the basic anatomy and the introductory, the external features of the earthworm. And also in our last lecture, we started with the systems and we started with the digestive system, if you remember, in our last lecture. So in today's lecture, it's all going to be about the remaining systems of the earthworm. Remember, they're not as detailed as we are going to study about humans, but what's important for you is that you need to be knowing the gist of every system, okay? If we're talking about like how in the last lecture we spoke about the digestive system, then in that, if you remember, we named all the organs of the digestive system. We also learned about which organ was placed in which segment. So being a worm and being a worm with metameric segmentation, you know that the segment number is going to be extremely important when we are talking about an earthworm, alright. If you remember, there are total around 100 to 120 segments present in an earthworm, alright. Now today, after our digestive system of the earthworm lecture was done, today we'll start with the remaining systems, where we are going to be covering very quickly and very easily and in a very systematic way. We'll be approaching the remaining systems so that your MCQs could be cracked quite easily. Alright, so shall we begin? So let's start. Now when we're talking about the circulatory system, after the digestive system, let's move on and we go on towards the circulatory system of the earthworm. Remember one thing, being an annelid, these worms, they're having a closed type of circulatory system. So when I'm saying that the circulatory system is closed, look at this diagram here. Can you see this diagram here where whatever you're seeing, the red color above, okay, this red color line that you're seeing above and even this purple colored line that you're seeing below over here, okay, all of these things that you're seeing here, all this, especially that red colored line, that is actually the dorsal vessel. If you remember, I told you, whenever you have an earthworm in your hand and you want to know which is the dorsal side, which is the ventral side. Yes, remember I told you that the dorsal side can be identified by the presence of a median red, dark red line, and that median dark red line is what we're going to be calling as the dorsal vessel, okay? So that dorsal vessel that we're seeing on the dorsal side is right what you're seeing over here, children. This over here, if you can see, I've marked it in red again. This is that dorsal vessel. So let's begin with the circulatory system of the earthworm, alright? Now, as I told you, it is a closed type. Closed type of circulatory system means that blood is going to be flowing inside blood vessels, alright? So, blood is flowing in blood vessels and also blood is found in capillaries, and also the most surprising thing here that they have 4 pairs of hearts, okay? How many? They have 4 pairs of hearts. Whoa, that's a lot. Look at those, where those 4 pairs are. Can you see those? Can you see over here? There is one here, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. Can you see those 4 pairs of hearts? Why am I saying pairs? The side that you're seeing here and the opposite side as well. Okay, so there is a pair, there is one side of it on one side of the digestive system, and on the other side of the digestive system belongs its pair, alright. So there are blood vessels, there are capillaries, and there are 4 pairs of hearts for its blood to be circulating in the body, alright. Now, we also see here that it is the heart. Which was the heart? Remember, these were the hearts, okay. These were the hearts. So these hearts are the ones which are going to be connecting the dorsal and the ventral. Now coming to these terms, dorsal. First of all, let's identify these dorsal and ventral parts here, okay. First, in this diagram over here, we have the top side here. This is our dorsal side of the earthworm, and below here, this is our ventral side, okay. Now in the dorsal side, the this vessel that you're seeing here is connected to the ventral vessel. Okay, so there is a dorsal vessel and then there is a ventral vessel, and those two vessels over here, one here and the second one here, these two blood vessels are connected with the help of these hearts that we just identified. Okay, so the heart connects the dorsal and the ventral blood vessels. Okay, also we see, because this is a closed circulatory system, blood is confined to the blood vessels. You will not find blood out of the blood vessels at all. All right. Also we see that this dorsal blood vessel, it is going to keep on contracting, and because of those constant contractions of the dorsal blood vessel, we see that this is going to enable, okay, the blood in the small blood vessels. Now we know that blood and oxygen and nutrition has to be reached to each and every tissue of this earthworm, right? So basically it cannot be this one dorsal vessel which can supply to everyone. So the dorsal vessel will be dividing into smaller blood vessels which we can call as capillaries, and those capillaries will take the blood to all the different parts of the body of the earthworm, like to the gut, to the nerve cord, and also to all parts of the body wall. Alright, so this is why we say that it is a closed circulatory system and blood is found within the blood vessels only. Alright. Now we also see that there are blood glands present. Okay, where are these blood glands present? They are present on segment number. Now remember, segment number has started again. Like we studied in the digestive system, segment number is important for all the respective systems over here. When we're talking about blood, which segments do we want to remember? Segment number 4, 5 and 6. All right. So segment 4th, 5th and 6th are the ones which have these blood glands present. Can you see here? This is one, this is the second gland, okay, and this here is the third gland we're talking about. Okay, so there are pairs of them on the other side as well. So whenever we're talking about pairs in the earthworm, like a little while back I told you that there were pairs of hearts, right? So always those pairs are located one on one side of the, if you can see here in this diagram, then you can identify that this part here, okay, I'll give it another color. This part here is the digestive system. Okay, so whenever we're talking about pairs, one side of it will be on one part of the digestive system and the other part of the pair will always be on the other side of the digestive system, which is making it a pair. Okay, so over here when I'm talking about segment number 4, 5 and 6 segments, okay, so on these segments we have blood glands present. All right, what is the function of these blood glands? Blood glands by default will produce blood. Okay, now when I'm talking about blood, what does the blood of an earthworm consist of? Okay, first of all, it consists of hemoglobin. All right, this hemoglobin is dissolved in plasma. All right, it's dissolved in plasma. In our body we have blood cells, they also do have blood cells. So these blood glands are the ones which are going to be producing blood cells. So they are producing blood cells and they are also producing hemoglobin. But in our body, which blood cells do we have? Do you remember those? We have the RBC, okay, we have the WBC and we have platelets too. Okay, so we have these blood cells. Now in our body we also do have hemoglobin, but hemoglobin is restricted to the RBC for us. For these earthworms, hemoglobin is found, but hemoglobin is dissolved in the plasma for an earthworm. Alright, so what is the function of the blood cells then? In our body, RBC is the main thing which is meant for carrying hemoglobin, which carries oxygen. But what about the WBC? These blood cells of the earthworm are behaving like our WBCs. What does our WBC do? Doesn't it do the work of, remember this word, I've taught you this word before also. The word was called as, phagocytosis. Alright, so when I talk about phagocytosis, alright, so phagocytosis, what is phagocytosis? It is all about the cells which will perform the activity of engulfing any foreign substance. Any foreign substance that comes into the body of the earthworm, there has to be something which is going to go and engulf it out or throw it out. That is its defense system. So these blood cells exactly are behaving as WBCs and performing phagocytosis for this earthworm, and it is behaving as its very own defense system. Okay, so blood glands, where are they present? On segment number 4, 5 and 6. They are present in pairs, remember this. Okay, so what do they produce? Two things. First, they produce blood cells, and second, they are producing hemoglobin. All right, blood cells and hemoglobin. Where is the hemoglobin found? In the plasma, not in a cell. All right. Okay, now we completed the circulatory system of that earthworm. Remember the main things of the circulatory system. There were two important blood vessels, okay, the dorsal blood vessel and the ventral blood vessel. Both of those blood vessels were joined with the help of hearts. How many hearts? There were 4 pairs of hearts for the earthworm. Now, also blood was found in the blood vessels, in capillaries, and also in these 4 pairs of hearts. But how did blood manage to always circulate in the body? What is it that was constantly contracting? It was the dorsal blood vessel, which constantly contracts in order to push the blood to all the different parts of the body, like the gut, like the body wall. Okay, so all different parts of the body is receiving blood because of the contractions of the dorsal blood vessel. All right, so I hope that makes the circulatory system quite clear. Remember what their blood was made up of. It was made up of blood cells, and it was made up of the hemoglobin. Where is the hemoglobin found? In the plasma itself. Okay, so this was all about the circulatory system of this earthworm. Now we come next to the excretory system of the earthworm. Now, before we begin with any of the parts of the excretory system, we need to identify that what type of or what mode of excretion does this earthworm exhibit. Okay, which mode of excretion does it exhibit? Mostly the earthworm is said to be ureotelic. But let me tell you one thing. This earthworm is an organism which exhibits a dual mode of excretion, which means that during the rainy season, where it is wet outside and the earthworm is out on the upper surface of the land and there is a lot of water around it, at that time this earthworm does show properties of ammonotelism, which means that it would be excreting out its nitrogenous waste in the form of ammonia. All right, but mostly throughout the year, when it's not rainy season, in the dry weather, the earthworm excretes out its nitrogenous waste. Okay, the nitrogenous waste is excreted out in the form of urea, and because it is excreted out in the form of urea, we can call these organisms as ureotelic. Remember one thing, when we speak about the excretion of nitrogenous waste, then nitrogen can be excreted out from the body in 3 ways. Either it could be in the form of ammonia, okay, or it could be in the form of urea, or it could be in the form of uric acid. Okay, now one major thing I'd like to tell you, that whether is it ammonia, is it urea, or is it uric acid, most importantly, it is depending upon how much is the water availability for this organism. Because in order to excrete it means what? You want to throw it out of the body. So when you want to throw this out of the body, you need a certain amount of water to eliminate ammonia, a certain amount of water to eliminate urea, a certain amount of water to eliminate uric acid. So depending upon how much water is available, that organism would exhibit that mode of excretion. Okay, generally we see those organisms which have abundancy of water around them, like aquatic organisms, they are excreting out ammonia, because ammonia Even a single gram of ammonia for excretion requires a lot of water, almost around 200 to 500 milliliters of water just to remove 1 gram of ammonia. That's a lot. So those animals which want to save water, which cannot afford to lose so much water, what would they excrete out? They would excrete out uric acid. Okay, so leaving that topic aside, concentrating right now on our earthworms, then the earthworm is seen to be excreting out mostly urea, which is why we call earthworms as ureotelic organisms. All right. Now, if it is excreting out urea, what is the major organ which is used for excreting it out? And that is going to be called as nephridia. Now, how will you remember nephridia? In our body, you know we have kidneys in order to perform excretion, right? Now, kidneys, can we use the word nephron inside that? That is the basic functional unit of our kidney, right? So, nephra related to excretion. So, over here, we will call those as nephridia. Okay, so now we have nephridia. Now, we see that in the body of the earthworm, there are a total of 3 types of nephridia. Which are they? First is called as the septal nephridia. Second is called as the integumentary nephridia. Integument means skin. And third is called as the pharyngeal nephridia. So, now septal, integumentary and pharyngeal. These are very important parts of the excretory system. What we'll do is, first we'll just study them individually and then we will do a comparison of them. Okay, so let's begin. When we begin with the first type of nephridia, we will first identify. Look at the diagram given here. This is a diagram from our very own NCERT textbook, which is our Bible of our NEET exam. Okay, so this is the diagram of the excretory system of the earthworm. Okay, now I would like you to locate over here. Where have they given the septal nephridia? Can you find it on the diagram? Yes, it is given right here. So, we can first, in this diagram, you need to be locating the septal nephridia. Remember one thing, for your NEET exam, just as how important each and every word from your NCERT textbook is, equally important is each and every diagram of your NCERT textbook. This is the diagram given for the excretory system of an earthworm. So remember, from these diagrams, each and every label is seen by you and you know what each and every label, where it is. Okay, so our first thing is septal nephridia. Where is it? Look at over there. Here it is, right here. Okay, also can you see at near around which segments is it in? I'd like you to just locate in this diagram, okay, where they have located the clitellum. Remember the clitellum? What was the clitellum? It was a band. And do you remember which segment number that was? It was segment number 14 to 16. So look over here. This is exactly where the clitellum region is. All the part above the clitellum means segment 1 to 13 is called as the preclitellar. Then you have the clitellum, which is 14, 15, 16. After 16, all the segments will be considered as postclitellar segments. Okay. Now, coming back to our nephridia. The septal nephridia are present on both the sides of, where are they? Look at these words very carefully. They are present on both sides of the intersegmental septa. Now, what is intersegmental septa? So, there is segment number 15, segment number 16. Between these two segments, there is a septum. What is a septum? A separation. Okay. So, that separation that you're seeing there, okay. So, between, can you see here? This is segment number 15. This is segment number 16. Between the two segments, there is a septum. And that septum which is found between the two segments is right here. And that is exactly the septum where you have got the nephridia present. Okay, so you have septal nephridia here, and that septal nephridia is present on this region. Okay, so that starts from the segments between 15 and 16, and that is the intersegmental part, and it continues all the way up till the end of that nephron, until the end of the earthworm. Okay, so they are present on both sides. So it's present on this side. Let me erase all this until now. So it's present on this side also, and it's present on the other side also. That's why we're saying it's present on both the sides. And where is it present? On the septa between the segments. On the septa between the segments, I will call them as intersegmental, between two segments, septa of the segments 15, 16 and going all the way up till the last segment. Okay, now these are going to be opening into the intestine. Remember one thing, not only is it important for us to know where are these nephridia placed, also it is important for us to know where do the nephridia open into. Means where is it going to pour out its excretory waste. Okay, there are going to be certain nephridia which will pour out the excretory waste to the external, whereas there are certain nephridia which pours out the excretory waste inside the digestive system. Okay, so over here these septal nephridia, where are they located? They start from segment 15, 16 and they continue all the way up till the end of that earthworm. They are going to be opening their excretory waste inside the intestine. Okay, inside the intestine. Okay, so that was the first one, septal nephridia. Second nephridia is called as the integumentary nephridia. Where are these located? Look at that right here. Okay, so these are integumentary nephridia. What is the location and where do they open? These are two things we want to study. Okay, first of all, understand that these are attached to the inner body wall right from the third segment. From the third segment exactly it starts, and it is going to continue all the way up till the last segment. So this means that the excretory system, the nephridia of this earthworm, starts right from segment number 3. Which nephridia are present there? Integumentary nephridia. And these nephridia are going to pour their secretions to the exterior, means directly their secretions are being removed out of the body of that earthworm, and those pores through which that excretion will come out, those pores are going to be called as the nephridiopores. They are called as what? They are called as nephridiopores. The pores through which that excretory system or excretory waste comes out from this integumentary nephridia are called as nephridiopores. Let's see how that looks like. Look at this diagram over here. You have the segments, okay, remember metameric segmentary. So as you have the external segments, similarly you have the internal segments, and these segments you can see here that here I'll draw it with the blue color here, just like how you are seeing this nephridia over here. Okay, you can see how there is a pore over here. Can you see that pore over there that I've circled here? So that is a nephridiopore, and all the excretory waste will be thrown to the exterior. Okay, so that exterior, the excretory waste will be coming out through the exterior body surface, and it comes out through that one opening, and that opening is going to be called as the nephridiopore. Okay, so the first nephridia which we saw, which was, what was it called as? It was called as the septal. Okay, it was called as septal nephridia. Septal nephridia opened into the intestine. Okay, then when we talk about the second nephridia, it was called as the integumentary nephridia. That integumentary nephridia opened up to the exterior. Okay, and now let's come to the next nephridia. That third type of nephridia is called as the pharyngeal nephridia. Look at our diagram. Look at where they have located the pharyngeal nephridia. Can you see over here? It's written, these are tufts of pharyngeal nephridia. Okay, they are tufts of pharyngeal nephridia. Where are they located? They are located in the segments. Remember, these are inside the segments. Okay, which segments? Segments number 4, segment 5 and segment number 6. So segments 4th, 5th and 6th contain 3 pairs of tufts. Tufts means there are like in bundles present over there. Okay, so there are tufts of these nephridia present in the segments number 4th, 5th and 6th. Okay, now next point. You know what is the next point? Where do they open? These are the nephridia which are also entering into, or they are pouring their secretions inside the digestive system. So they are opening into the buccal cavity and into the pharynx. Okay. So our three nephredias, out of our three nephredias, the septal and the pharyngeal were the ones which are pouring their secretions inside the digestive system. But it was the integumentary nephridia which was pouring its secretion to the exterior. Okay. So now we know two major points of all the three nephridia. First point, where is it located? Second point, where does it open up into? Okay. So just like we spoke about where it opens up into, if the excretory waste is thrown out to the exterior. Now, do you remember that word? How was it thrown out to the exterior? It was by this small opening, this small pore, and that was called as the nephridiopore. Do you remember that? So, these nephridia which have the nephrediopores in order to throw the secretion to the exterior, those type of nephridia are called as exonephric nephridia. So exonephric nephridia, okay, exo means exterior, exonephric nephridia means when the nephridia are opening to the exterior, that too with the help of what? With the help of those nephridiopores. Okay, so if there is an exonephric which is opening to the exterior, there has to be another type of nephridia which we will call, which is opening into the intestine. Now there was a word I taught you which we use for intestine, like similarly like how we use cardiac for heart. The same way, when we want to talk about anything related to our intestine, which is the word that we want to use? We'll be using the word entero. Okay, we'll use the word entero. So this next type of nephridia is called as the enteronephric nephridia. So nephridia, according to how the secretion is taken out, either the secretion is poured into the digestive system or the secretion is poured to the exterior. If it is poured to exterior, we'll call it as an exonephric nephridia. If it is put into the digestive system, into the intestine, then we will call it as an entero. Entero means intestine. So as an enteronephric nephridia. Okay. Now these enteronephric nephridia are the ones which are opening into the intestine. But what functions do they do? These are controlling, or these are rather regulating the functions of the helping in the earthworm's osmoregulation. What is osmoregulation? Osmoregulation is nothing but a balance for, or balance between, or balance to maintain between salt and water in the body fluid. So basically it is a salt and water balance which it's going to be helping in maintaining. Second, it helps in conservation of water, and third, it helps in homeostasis of water in the body. So these enteronephric nephridia are helping the earthworm for osmoregulation, conservation and homeostasis of water. Alright. So we saw two types of nephridia based upon where their secretions are thrown out. Alright. Now I'd like you to look at this diagram carefully. Okay, look at this small region that you see here. Okay, can you see that region over there? That small thing, it is a ciliated funnel. Okay, and that ciliated funnel is called as a nephrostome. What is it called as? It's called as a nephrostome. Now, what is this nephrostome? The nephrostome is a ciliated funnel, as I told you. But what does it do? It does the work of pushing any water, pushing the waste materials, whatever hormones. Now remember, the earthworm has hormones too. So pushing any hormones which are not required, unnecessary hormones, that all is going to be pushed into the nephridia. What is this? This is called as a nephrostome. So this nephrostome, whenever you hear the word nephrostome means it is a ciliated funnel which is going to take the waste materials, water, waste materials and any hormones which are not needed, and it will push it inside that nephridia. So the nephredias which have the nephrostome are called as an open nephridia, or you may call these as a metanephridia. Okay, nephredias which have these ciliated nephrostomes are called as open nephridia or metanephridia. And look at this here. So can you see maybe a better diagram over here? Okay, so this over here, what you are able to see, this part over here, can you see that? That is a funnel with cilia in it, and that is your nephrostome. So what is that nephrostome going to do? It will take the waste, it will take the water, it will take those unnecessary hormones, and what will it do? It will push it through that nephridia, and then it will be called as a metanephridia. Whichever nephridia contain the nephrostome, those will be called as metanephridia. So if a nephrostome, if it is present, then we call it as an open or a metanephridia. Okay, but if the nephrostome is absent, then that nephridia is going to be called as a closed, or you may call it as a protonephridia. Alright, so based on the presence or absence of the nephrostome, then that nephridia can be either called as an open or metanephridia, or a closed or a protonephridia. Okay, so right now we just did 4 types of nephridia, right? What did we just do? The first one we did exonephric, enteronephric. Then we did metanephric and we did protonephric. Okay, so remember those 4 points that we just did. All right, remember, let's just recall those. First we had exonephric, okay, and we had enteronephric. Okay, what were these based on? Based on where the secretion is poured. Okay, then based on the presence or absence of, what was that called as? Nephrostome. You have 2 types. One was the metanephridia, or you have the protonephridia. Okay, so you have those 4 types of nephridia which we just studied. Now, as I told you before, we went through individual nephridias. Now let's see a comparative study, okay, of these nephridia. The first nephridia, septal. Second was the integumentary. Third being the pharyngeal nephridia. Where was the septal nephridia present? It was present in the intersegmental septum, okay, the septum between 2 segments. Where did it start? It started in the septum present between segment 15 and 16, and it continued all the way up to the last segment of this earthworm. Talking about the next type of nephridia, the integumentary one, that nephridia is attached to the inner body wall. But where is it found? Right from segment number 3 all the way till the last. And the third one, these were the ones which were present in tufts in 3 segments. Which segments? Segments number 4, 5th and the 6th segment. Okay, coming to the next points. Do you remember which the next points was? Yes, it was where does it open? The septal nephridia open into the intestine. Integumentary open into the exterior. How do they open into the exterior? Those small pores, they were called as nephridiopores. Okay, the third one, pharyngeal nephridia. Pharyngeal nephridia, these were the ones which were opening into the buccal cavity and pharynx. Again, that is a part of the digestive system. Okay, and talking next about the types of nephridia. Okay, types of nephridia, do you remember them, children? Remember there were 4 types. Okay, don't forget, look here. There were 4 types. Either they were where, depending upon where is the excretory waste being thrown out, and also depending upon the, based on the presence of the nephrostome. So let's continue. Okay, I'm going for a minute. Now, next point we see, if it is a metanephridia. What was metanephridia? When the nephrostome was present. Okay, so septal nephridia are metanephridia, whereas Integumentary nephridia are protonephridia, which means that that nephrostome is not present. And pharyngeal nephridia also are having no nephrostome, so they're called as protonephridia. The last point, where the secretion is being thrown, is it in the intestine? So septal nephridia, can you see it opens into, as it is written, it opens into the intestine, so they are enteronephric nephridia. Talking about integumentary nephridia, where is it opening? Into the exterior, so these are going to be the exonephric nephridia. And talking about the pharyngeal nephridia, they're opening into the buccal cavity and pharynx, so that will again be enteronephric nephridia. Okay, so I hope this is clear. What you can do is you all can take a screenshot of this page, which is going to help you remember the whole excretory system of this earthworm. Alright, these three types of nephridia: septal, integumentary, pharyngeal, and the points related to it. This is the first point, the second, the third, and the fourth point. Alright, so that was a comparative study that we have done. Alright, so here's a comparative study we've done. Now let's continue ahead. Alright, so remember this diagram. Don't forget the diagram. Remember, NCERT diagrams are very important. Okay, so the three types of nephridia we saw. First we saw septal, then we saw integumentary, and then we saw these pharyngeal. Remember, septal was 15 to 16. Okay, the integumentary was 3rd onwards, and the pharyngeal were 4th, 5th, and 6th. Okay, so don't forget those numbers. They are very important. Okay, segment numbers. Okay, now after the excretory system was done, let's move on and we carry ourselves forward to the nervous system of the earthworm. Do you think the earthworm has a brain? Does it? Do you think it can think? Do you think the brain is an organ? Or do you think it's just nerves present? Well, we are going to be calling that as a brain, but it is not exactly an organ like our brain is. So what is it? It is just a collection of cytons. Now, if you've seen my previous lectures, I've taught you that collection of cytons is going to be called as a ganglia. Remember this word? Okay, collection of cyton is called as ganglia. So basically, there are these huge ganglias which are present near the head region of, or near the initial segments of this earthworm. And because there are huge ganglia present in the initial segments, we're going to be calling these as the brain of that earthworm. Okay, so look over here. These parts that you're seeing here, which are said to be the brain, they are not actually an organ, but what are they? They are nothing but ganglia present. Okay, so let's begin with the nervous system. When we talk about the nervous system of this earthworm, we will see that the most important structure that we want to learn about here is something which is going to be called as a nerve ring. Okay, a nerve ring. So, what is this nerve ring all about? Let's see that. First, we will see what is this nerve ring made up of. The nerve ring is made up of 3 components. Now, the minute I say ring, you want to see something circular, don't you? So, let me show you what that circular part is made up of. Initially, we have something which is called as a cerebral ganglia. So, this part that we were talking about right now, remember a little while back only I told you, something called as a ganglia. What is a ganglia? A ganglia is a group of cytons. Okay, so these are a group of cytons which are located near the anterior or the starting segments. Hence, we were going to call these as the cerebral ganglia. Okay, then look at where these cerebral ganglia are present. Remember, whenever I told you that if in the earthworm anything is paired, then one part of it will be on one part of the digestive system, the second will be on the second part of the digestive system. So we see here that in the cerebral ganglia, one part of the ganglia is on this side of the digestive system, and on the other side of the digestive system is the second ganglia. That makes it a pair. Okay, then there is a connective. Okay, and look at the course of that connective. This connective is called as, look at the name first. Okay, or rather what we'll do, let's see its position. Can you see how it is positioned over here? And where is this position? It is around the esophagus. Because it is around the esophagus, we're going to be calling it as the circumesophageal connectives. Okay, so it is something which is around the esophagus. Hence, it is called as circumesophageal. Where is this nerve ring beginning? Beginning at the cerebral ganglia. How is it continuing? Continuing as the circumesophageal connectives. And the lowermost part, the ending of that nerve ring, that ending is going to be called as the subesophageal ganglion. Why? Because it is below the esophagus. So this part over here in the ending is called as the subesophageal ganglion. So we have three parts to a nerve ring. When I'm saying a nerve ring, there is one, the cerebral ganglia, two, the connectives around the esophagus. So I call it as the circumesophageal connectives. Third, the ganglia which is below the esophagus. So you'll call it as the subesophageal ganglia. Okay. So these are the three ganglias which are present, and all these ganglias put together are going to be forming what we call as the nerve ring. Okay. So when we're talking about nerve ring of the earthworm, what do you mean by nerve ring? It is composed of first the cerebral ganglia, second the circumesophageal connectives, and third the subesophageal ganglia. Okay, all these three things put together are going to be forming that nerve ring. Now, next, when we're talking about the nervous system, we cannot afford to forget cells which can perform sensory functions. Okay, so when we're talking about sensory functions, there are cells which are called as the receptor cells. Now, if I'm saying that they are receptor cells, what exactly are they going to be receiving, or what exactly are they going to be perceiving? These are perceiving the sense of light, sense of touch, and chemical stimulus. Okay, so these receptor cells, they're all going to be placed near the anterior end of that earthworm. Anterior end means that near the initial segments near the brain, and all of those are going to be receiving light, they'll be receiving touch, and they'll be receiving chemical stimuli. Remember, these are not things like vision. Okay, they're not it's not able to see, but they are able to sense light. Okay, so that's why we say that earthworms are actually nocturnal animals. All right, so they are nocturnal animals. Next, when we see, or when we conclude with the last system, that is the reproductive system of the earthworm, well, there is a lot to be learning here. Okay, when we're talking about this earthworm, first of all, we know that earthworms are hermaphrodite. What are they? They are hermaphrodite, which means that both the male and the female sex organs are found in the same organism. Okay, so earthworms are hermaphrodite. Then if you remember from our last lecture, where I told you that where are the positionings of the pores. Okay, there are male pores present, and then there are female pores present too. So there is a pair of male genital pores. Where is it present? On the 18th segments. Okay, pair. Remember, those male genital pores are paired, and the female pore is a single pore. But where is that single pore present? It is present on the 14th segment. Okay, so there are male pairs which are paired, and there is a female pore which is a single pore. The male ones are located on 18th, female is located on the 14th. Okay, now when we see, initially we talk about the male reproductive system, we see that there are two pairs of testes. Okay, how many pairs? There are two pairs of testes. All right, so when we're talking about the two pairs of testes, look at where they are in this diagram. Okay, so can you see, this is the diagram which is exactly there, same diagram in our NCERT textbook, children. Okay, so we need to know the labelings of it, and please do remember that there are segment numbers over here too. All right, so we see here that there are two pairs of testes. Where are they located? Look at that over here. Look at here, this is the first pair. All right, this is one pair, and then this here is the second pair. Okay, so there are two pairs of testes here. Look at the segment number. Remember, earthworm, most important, we need to know segment numbers. So in the male reproductive system of the earthworm, we see that one pair each is located in the 10th and the 11th segments. Okay, 10th and 11th segments have one pair of testes. Okay, next we see that if the testes means the sperms are going to be made there, we need the sperms to be traveling. So there is a vas difference. So their vasa differentia, it starts right where the testes are, and it is going to be running all the way up till the 18th segment. Okay, so look at that over here, how that vasa differentia is running all the way down. Can you see how that vasa difference is running down? And the vas difference is coming all the way down and entering at the region of the 18th segment. At the 18th segment, what do they join with? They're going to be joining with these prostatic ducts. How? First, let's locate, these are the prostate glands. Alright, these are the prostate glands, and when you see these prostate glands, there the prostatic ducts are going to be there, and the prostate, this is the duct coming from the testes, that is the vas difference. It is going to join with the prostatic duct, and together they will be opening into this part over here, which is going to be called as the male genital pore. Okay, so let's see that the vas difference runs all the way up till the 18th segment. They're going to join the prostatic duct, and we see there are two pairs of seminal vesicles. Where are these seminal vesicles? Let's locate them. Look at that one here. This is one pair over here, segment number 11. One pair over here, segment number 12. So there are two pairs of these seminal vesicles. What is the function of the seminal vesicle? These seminal vesicles are the regions where, or these are the sacs where the spermatogonia, means the immature sperm, are going to be actually maturing over there. And what do they mature into? They mature into a spermatozoa. Okay, they mature into a spermatozoa. So the spermatogonia matures into the spermatozoa in which sac? In the sac which is called as the seminal vesicle, placed in segments number 11 and 12. Okay, all right. Then we see that these ducts which are there, remember the which ducts? We're talking about the prostatic duct and we're talking about the spermatic ducts. Okay, these are going to be opening into the exterior. And remember, we spoke before we started, we spoke about the pores present. I told you that there is a pair of male pores and there is a single female pore. So these pair of male pores are opening in segment number 18. Okay, so these ducts are going to be carrying the male genital, the sperms, and they will be opening in the pore, and that pore is located on segment number 18. Okay, now we also see after these seminal vesicles, we see that there is a presence of accessory glands. Okay, where are these accessory glands present? Let's see that over here, where like how in humans also there are accessory glands, similarly over here accessory glands are present. And where are they present? One pair is located on segment number 17 and the second pair is located on segment number 19. So there are two pairs of accessory glands and they are present in each segment, one on 17 and one in the 19th segment. Alright. Now, we also see here that there are four pairs of spermaticae which are located from segment number 6 to 9. Where are they? Look at that over here. Here are the spermaticae. So can you see one pair, 6th segment, 7th segment, 8th segment and the 9th segment. So from segment number 6 till segment number 9, we have that there are four pairs of spermaticae present. Okay. These are the region where those spermatozoa, remember where was the spermatozoa maturing? It was maturing in those seminal vesicles. So those spermatozoa are going to be received by and stored in these spermaticae during, and they're going to be, or rather the spermaticae is the region where during copulation, whenever another male cockroach or male earthworm will be releasing the sperms, those will be received by these spermaticae and they will be stored over there. Okay, so they're going to be receiving and they're going to be storing spermatozoa, that is the spermatophore, while during copulation. Okay, so that is the function of spermaticae. Now, moving on towards the female reproductive system of this earthworm, we see first there is a pair of ovaries. Where are these ovaries? They are attached to the intersegmental septum. Okay, so look at this here, one ovary here, another ovary over here. Where, which segments? Segments number between in the septum, okay, because it is over here. The septum between the 12th and the 13th segment, okay, there is one pair of ovaries attached. Then we see that there is this oviduct which is present as a funnel on segment number 14. And remember, in the female earthworm, there is one pore, one genital pore, and that too located on segment number 14. Alright. Alright, now after we learnt about the parts or the segment positions of the male reproductive system and of the female reproductive system, let us conclude with how fertilization takes place, how the cocoon is formed, and also initially how copulation takes place. Okay, what is copulation? Copulation is nothing but mating. Alright, now we see ahead. First of all, we see that the earthworms are, we know that they are hermaphrodite, which means that male and female both in one organism. But which is the part which matures first? It is the male reproductive organs which are going to be maturing first. Hence, these are said to be organisms which are protandrous, which means that the male is going to be initially developed or maturing first than the female. Okay. Next, we see that there is going to be a mutual exchange of spermatozoa. Where was the spermatozoa? It was present in the, it was maturing in the seminal vesicle, and it would come out through that male genital pore. Male genital pore. Okay. Now, what happens here? There is going to be a mutual exchange of the spermatozoa when during mating. Now, we see here in this diagram, if you see, there is one worm over here and there is another worm over here. Can you see that this is the anterior end of one worm and this is the anterior end of the other worm? So they are in an opposite direction. So when they are in an opposite direction, we can call this type of mating as a juxtaposing opposite or a juxtaposing. Juxtaposing means that they're going to be very close to each other and they are so situated as opposite gonadal openings. So we see here that they mate juxtaposing opposite gonadal openings. All right. Okay. Next we see what are they going to be doing while the copulation is happening. There is going to be exchange of sperms. Now, sperms which are traveling from one earthworm to another earthworm are going to be traveling in the form of small packets. And these small packets will be called as the spermatophores. Okay, so sperms are traveling from one earthworm into another earthworm in the form of packets which are called as spermatophores. And these mature sperms, the egg cells and the nutritive fluid all together which are produced. Remember, I told you that clitellum is a glandular region. So what is it going to do? It will secrete. What does it secrete? It secretes nutritive fluid. All these three put together are deposited inside the cocoon which is going to be formed. Okay. So can you see over here how the cocoon is formed? So inside the cocoon, in order for that young earthworm for development, there are mature sperms, there are egg cells inside the cocoon which will fertilize, which will fuse together. So the fertilization is actually taking place externally, and that is going to be forming a cocoon into which that small earthworm will be developing. Remember, over here the development is direct. There is no larval stage present. Okay, so we see here that the fertilization and the development are occurring inside the cocoon. Okay, and these cocoons by that parent earthworm is deposited inside the soil. Once the cocoon is mature, the baby earthworm is going to come out, and that baby earthworm, around from one cocoon, around 4 earthworms or 4 babies earthworms can come out, and that too the cocoon is ranging, or cocoon period lasts for around 3 weeks. All right. So children, concluding with this, we have what all have we covered in today's lecture? Just try to remember. Initially we talked about the circulatory system, then we moved on to the excretory system, followed by the nervous system, and finally we did the reproductive system. So we see here in the circulatory, okay, What were the important points we spoke about? There were blood vessels. Okay, there were blood vessels. Which were they? There was the dorsal blood vessel and there was the ventral blood vessel, right? Then there were capillaries. There were capillaries. Then there were four pairs of hearts. Okay, remember it was this dorsal blood vessel which was constantly contracting. All right. Also, what was the blood made up of? Blood was made up of cells, blood cells, and hemoglobin. All right. So that was first circulatory system. Then we moved on to the excretory system. Okay. Remember excretory system? We had first, we located three types or three of them. First was septal. Okay. Based on the location. First was septal, then was integumentary, and third was pharyngeal. Okay, then based on where its secretion is going, we had exonephric, okay, and we had enteronephric. All right, and then based on the presence or absence of a nephrostome, we had a metanephric or we had a protonephric. Okay, so these were the different types of nephridia we studied. Okay, these are all nephridia. All right, then what else did we do? We did the nervous system, and in the nervous system, the most important thing was the nerve ring. Okay, in the nerve ring there were three parts. Which were those three parts for the nerve ring? Initially was the cerebral ganglia. Second were the connectives. Remember the name of the connectives? Those were called as circumesophageal connectives. Okay, and the third one was subesophageal ganglia. So all these three together were making the nerve ring, and remember it was the cerebral ganglia which we referred to as the brain of the earthworm. Okay, then we moved on towards the reproductive system of the earthworm. Remember the male genital pore was in pairs. That was at the 18th segment. The female genital pore was single. That was at the 14th segment. Okay, so we've completed all about the earthworm. We learned the external features, we learned the anatomy, and we learned the different systems of earthworm too. For external features and anatomy, go back to our Yupp Master channel, look for earthworm, and you'll find all the points in detail, exactly what you require for your NEET exam. If you haven't done so, please do so. Like this video, comment on whatever you feel. If you have any doubts, do come to our Yupp Master platform. There is an app. Do download that app if you haven't done so yet. So download it, and over there, any doubts that you have right now, any doubts that you have forward, you have a platform where you can post those doubts, and I personally will be handling all your zoology doubts. Okay, so do that, the Yupp Master app. And also children, do subscribe to our Yupp Master NEET page so you can get all our further videos too. All right, until then, you guys stay home, stay safe, and we'll be having our next lecture which is about the arthropoda. All right, till then, bye bye.